Hello, welcome to Mr. Brandt's 5th grade Everyday Math Review. In this video, we're going over lesson 5.9, Understanding an Algorithm for Fraction Multiplication. So in 5.7, we found a fraction of a fraction. In the last video, 5.8, we learned that by using an area model, we learned that finding the fraction of a fraction is the same as multiplying. And so today we're going to take the next step and move towards an algorithm for fraction multiplication. So just like in the last video, they asked you to find the length of the shaded portion. So in this case, the shaded portion is 3/4. Then we're going to multiply that by the width of the shaded portion, and you can see the width of that shaded portion is 2/3. And some of you might have noticed this in the last video, and maybe even in lesson 5.7, but if we count how many total sections there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we get 12 total sections. And if you notice here, the denominators, if we did 4 times 3, that's also 12. And by multiplying the denominators together, that's going to tell you how many total sections the whole amount is going to have. Then if we look at the number of sections that are shaded, that ended up being 6. So 6 out of the 12 sections are shaded. And if you notice again, 3 times 2 is 6. So the numerators, when multiplied together, are going to tell you how many total sections will be shaded in. So one way of thinking about fraction multiplication is you can write it like the numerators multiplied together, and then the denominators multiplied together. So 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 3 is 12, and that will give you your answer. All right, I'm going to leave all of this up here, and we're going to do some work over here in the open section. And let's look at the problem 2/3. Let's do 2/3 times 1/2. And what does that equal? Well, just like on the bottom, we can rewrite this, and we can do 2 times 1 and we can put that over 3 times 2, and that's going to give us 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So 2/3 times 1/2 is the same as 2/6, or is equal to 2/6. For most of the time when I do this, and most of the time when my students do this, we skip this middle portion. Okay, we do not put that middle portion on our papers. You have to check with your teacher to see what they want you to do with that. The next part of your home link is asking you if a product, so the answer to a multiplication problem, will be greater or less. So let's look at this. If we just use our first sample problem here, 3/4 times 2/3. So if I multiply 3/4 times 2/3, is the product or the answer going to be greater or less than 3/4? Is it going to be greater than or less than 3/4? So hopefully this will help you think about that. So my fourths are along the bottom here. So I'm gonna trace around what would represent 3/4 of the entire square. So these red lines here are going to go around what is 3/4 of the entire square. Okay. Now, of this 3/4, I'm only finding 2/3 of that. I'm only going to find 2/3 of that. And I'm going to use this dark blue. Hopefully it will show up here. Not the greatest. Let's try the orange. That's a little bit better. So the orange lines are representing what 2/3 of the 3/4 would be. And as you can see, 2/3 of 3/4 is not this whole amount. And so it can't be greater. It has to be less. And the reason it's less is because we're only finding 2/3 of that 3/4. We're not finding the whole amount of the 3/4. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Hopefully the picture helped. But the reason why when we multiply by a fraction we get a smaller amount is because we're not finding that whole amount. We're only finding a portion of it. For the practice portion at the bottom, they're asking you to do some fraction addition. And there are a number of different ways of finding common denominators, because remember, you have to find a common denominator before we can add. And this is where it starts to get really confusing for some of my 5th grade students. When we start doing some multiplication and some addition and all those different things start getting mixed up in their brains. With multiplying, you do not have to find a common denominator. With adding or subtracting, you have to find a common denominator. I'm going to rewrite this problem vertically because I like to do my fraction problems vertically. And there's a number of strategies that you can use to find a common denominator. I like to start with multiples. So I'm going to start with the multiples of the denominators. So 6 and 3. So the first few multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18. And the first few multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12. Now I'm looking to see if there's a common multiple that's the same for both, and there is at 6. So now I'm going to make equivalent fractions with 6 for my denominator. 6 times 1 is 6. And I have to do the same thing to the numerator. So 5 times 1 is 5. Obviously, that doesn't change at all. Then, for the bottom part, 3 times 2 is 6. And if I do 3 times 2, I also have to do 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 5, 6 plus 4, 6. 5, 6 plus 4, 6 is 9, 6. Now, depending on your teacher, that might be an okay answer. So for my class, 9, 6 is an acceptable answer. If you want to turn it into a mixed number, to do that, fractions are division problems. So we have 9 divided by 6. There's one group of 6 and 9. 1 times 6 is 6. We subtract and we get 3. So it'll be 1 remainder 3. Our quotient always becomes the whole number. The remainder becomes the numerator. And then the denominator, or the divisor, in our division problem doesn't change. So it'll be 1 3/6. Now, we could even take that a step further, and we could say 1 1/2. We're not going to go over that right now, how to get that. But if you're able to take it a step farther, that's also acceptable.